there are two bikes that are crying out for a head-to-head that we've ridden this winter, it's the Honda CBR1000RR-R-SP and the R1M that we rode at the tail end of last year. Both launches took place on current MotoGP tracks. Both launches feature bikes with inline 4-cylinder engines that make 200 horsepower or more. Both machines are absolutely dripping in tech, electronics, and have the sporting hopes of their respective factories pinned on their success. Another reason to check these two machines out in a bit more detail is the way they go about going fast. It's true that both are inline 4-cylinder engines, although with the cross-plane crank of the Yamaha R1M, its delivery is totally different to the new Fireblades. First of all, let's have a look at the price of these two new motorcycles. The 2020 Honda Fireblade SP comes in at £23,499 and the 2020 Yamaha R1 comes in at £22,145. It's not a huge amount in it, considering the Fireblade is basically an all-new machine, while the R1M is an update of the model that we've had for a few years now. On a PCP deal with £4,000 down as a deposit, the Fireblade would cost £320 per month, while the R1M would come in at £283 per month. With the new R1M making Euro 5 certification this year, you'd be forgiven for expecting that the latest version would be down on power compared to the old bike. But no, Yamaha's engineers have made clever use of catalyzer locations, throttle butterfly setup and oil delivery to ensure that no ponies were lost in the transition. With a claimed 200 horsepower at 13,500 RPM and 83.5 foot-pound of torque at 11,500 RPM, the R1 engine is as smooth and linear in its power delivery as anything that we've ever ridden. It's got a go-anywhere grunt to it that almost feels like you could pull out of a slow hairpin bend in 4th gear without too much trouble. Once the engine's low-range and mid-range grunt is dispensed with, the Yamaha wails its way to a red line with all the ferocity that you'd expect from a top-draw sports bike. All of this is backed with a stunningly accurate Yamaha MotoGP bike soundtrack. The Honda, on the other hand, is a completely different kettle of fish. It's peaky and it feels less torquey and more like a race bike in its delivery. Exiting the corners requires you to deftly sit the bike just inside the Fireblade's sweet spot for the slickest corner exit. You get the distinct impression that the blade has been developed to recapture past glories on the racetrack. To find out if that makes it a good road bike or not, we'll have to wait for it to come onto the Honda press fleet to find out. One of the interesting elements of looking at these two bikes is because they go about their suspension in very similar ways, almost identical in fact, as Honda uses the Öhlins MPX Smart EC controlled forks and an electronically adjusted TTX33 rear shock, with the Yamaha using exactly the same hardware. With the same kit at work here, the only tweak in the factories can really do is in the way that the system implements itself and by how much the parameters between each setting change the way the bike feels. With that in mind, I'm drawn to the Fireblade launch in Qatar, where my very own suspension technician, a certain Mr. Freddie Spencer, was busy twiddling my settings for the afternoon track sessions. Once I was out on track, I quickly realised that I'd never felt electronic suspension make that much of a difference in the way that a bike felt. Riding from one session to the next, it was like night and day in comparison. I did a similar thing on the Yamaha R1M launch in Jerez in October, and although I could tell something had changed, I couldn't feel exactly where on the bike it had altered or what the individual suspension setting had done. Also, it's worth noting that this is probably another move by Honda to win in World Superbike and BSB, in that the Fireblade has been developed from the start with Öhlins engineers at the forefront of the bike's design. It's not as magic carpet smooth as the R1M, and again that leads me to think that the most track focused of the settings will be just that, resigned to the track and not much use on the road. Admittedly, choosing which 200 superbike you want is like choosing which day of the week you'd prefer to win the lottery on. And for many, this decision will come down to price, styling and previous experience with a particular dealership or brand. For me though, the decision is fairly clean cut and is based around one of these machines being single-minded in its approach to success. The 2020 Honda Fireblade is a race bike with lights, indicators and mirrors fitted to it. Honda are developing the bike in this way to fulfill the old adage, race on Sunday, sell on Monday. And if I were looking to do a significant number of motorcycle track days, the Honda would be an ideal motorcycle to do it on, as long as I already had another bike in the garage to rely on for all my other journeys. The peaky power delivery and compact riding position will, for many people bigger than me, mean the Fireblade is just too compromised for everyday use, while the R1M provides a slightly larger amount of real-world comfort and usability. So there you have it, but what bikes would you like us to compare? Let us know in the comments below and we'll see what we can do.